Good morning, Frank Marrero. This is Ed Reether in Boston area. Frank Marrero in Berlin, Germany. How are you in this afternoon? And I'm in the morning.
That's right. Indeed. I'm wonderful. Really
Well,
good.
I'm glad to see you. I'm very happy that we bumped into one another in Marin County
Out
about
of the
two, three
blue.
weeks out of the blue in Marin County.
Wow.
Well, I was in California. You were there for your son's wedding, and it's good to see you.
Yeah, always good to see you.
Mhm.
That was magic. That was really magic. It was like, whoa, we should have a talk. And here we are.
Well, it's magic to me because I'm so involved with so many different things. But one of the things that I'm involved with is reinvigorating myself with the Western tradition of
Mm.
the Greeks because some of the work that I'm doing. And so you're such a well, you really are a scholar, but you can't own your knowledge on your own effort.
Tr- Grace works in strange ways. That's indeed for
It
sure.
is it is remarkable. It truly is remarkable. So I did want to talk to you a couple of on items, but you wanted to speak to something to the audience on B Zone, I believe.
Absolutely. Sure. Well, I'm intimately tied into Adidam, and as I like to call myself, I'm a reformed adolescent. I went before the Adolescents Anonymous, and I too am an adolescent, and went through the 12 steps, and now I'm a reformed adolescent for a joke. Uh, and I learned a lot of things about participating in Adidam that was such a relief and such a revelation. So I want to advocate of being closer to the actual institution and culture of Adidam.
I have to. I'm flashing out a memory I have here of you. Um, Maybe you could tell the audience that one time I believe the last time you were in a group with Adi Da, or you were in a darshan occasion or a talk, and you left the occasion to do childcare. I believe you told me that you, in your mind, said, "Oh, I've heard what he's talking about," or somehow you made some kind of a statement internally, said, I'm bored. I'm going
Something
out
like
to
that. Yeah,
I'm
that's
going
good.
out
That's a
to
pretty good memory. That was in 1989, and
I
Adida and I and he was one of these wonderful occasions where he's power footing all the way and
no, maybe you
and
could just explain power footing so people.
demanding. He's saying, "Look, I've shown you divinity in beauty and in person, and lay it down, give your life up, and absolute at every level, at every depth, come to me, give your life up to God." And and that's been said for many years actually, but the intensity of it was such that I was had my diary there, and I wrote in my diary, "Your absolute demand has made my refusal simple." And so that was as far as I could. I was on, that was as far as my honesty, so to speak, could go at that moment. So I was near the door, and so I just kind of I wrote that, and I went, right, I can't do what he's asking. Well, there's people who die to be in this room, and on childcare, I'll just slide out and go on and let some of them come in. And so I, slid out, and I was walking across the lawn, and the door opened up, and they said, "Frank." I turned around. What? He says, "Master wants to know where you're going." He knew way more than I knew.
Well, in the
And
midst of hundreds of people probably sitting in the room.
absolutely, that's right. And so he interrupted the whole thing to heighten my own awareness. And I said, "I'm going on childcare." And I turned around and kept walking. The door closed. The door opened back up. Master says, "Get back in here right now." And So I came back in uh, and stayed for another couple hours till the whole evening ended. And in fact, I was near the door so that I could actually, uh, when he got up to leave, I jumped up and held the door for him, bowed at his feet. So, um, and then I realized that I had been taken by a overwhelming urge to work on this Hellenic project that he had actually blessed, told me to go follow that. And I went, I'm just going to do just that. And I went down and withdrew my name from the student list so that I could just devote whatever it took to do that. So and so he knew it when I got up to leave that I mean he saw the much greater picture. I had to discover it as I went along, but so I was a non participant for a few years as I worked on something he wanted me to work on for 8 years. So that's that. You have a good memory.
Well, you're bringing up a lot of issues or points here in this, and one of the culminating comment that I first wanted to bring to the audience is that I believe he told you, he said, beware of adolescence.
Yeah.
If
See, that was a
when
note.
you
Yes, a couple
yeah,
weeks later, I went down, withdrew my name. And it's a long story, but we had some back and forth that was unbelievably sweet. And the last thing he said was, "Beware of adolescence," which, of course, is all because he had heightened and enlightened this sensitivity in me, is all I saw for the next many years, which was an incredible, great gift. And
well,
that's why I say
the,
I'm a reformed adolescent.
which I want to address because that's what you wanted to talk about. But what you I want to unpack a little bit of what you just said, because part of what you've said is paradoxical, because he's also his
Mhm.
premonition or his vision. He can see that you're going to make this movement, but also you turn that movement into a service
A
of
gift.
work, but also your immersion in the Greek and Hellenic tradition really turned out to be an extraordinary amount of work that you didn't even know you had the skills or the talents to do.
Oh, I knew I didn't have them, but that isn't, it still happened and it was miraculous indeed.
Yeah, so I mean, out of that leaving, you created a volume of work that still to this day has not been fully incorporated into the classical world of where I am here in Cambridge, into that world of the Greek scholars and the literature. They're still combing the old manuscripts and back into the archaeology of Hellenic tradition, but they haven't come alive. And I think Norman Brown gave you a comment saying, "Where the hell did you get this
He
work?"
did. Well,
Yeah.
and that what was, Norman O'Brien, who was at the time, I considered the leading classicist in America. And he said that my work reminded him of Blavatsky, who he says, but my work not only highlighted the mystical tradition of the East, but of the East, but of the West. And and he said it extended his considerations, not only recapitulated all of his considerations, but extended them into areas that he had not imagined. He said that to me face to face, and that was kind of when I realized something had happened, and and it took me many years to appreciate it. And it's the essence of it is this: what you need, what is necessary, is to be initiated by Eleutherios himself. And once the mystery tradition has been poured upon you in oceans, then you read all this scholarship with a heightened different sense. And
Right.
so I get all kinds of accolades, um, but it's not me. It's just someone who has been graced by the personal, intimate company which is available to everyone, of Adi Da's company, the baptizing force of divine company, the mysteries itself, themself, himself, itself, oneself. That is that has was poured upon anyone who comes, breathes his sacred company. And then you
Well,
read all this stuff about the mystery traditions and the evolution of divinities, and you go, oh, this is what they mean. Not scholarly at all. It's an entirely different event. So, in other words, there was
well,
no virtue on my part. I was just the lucky guy.
well, anybody who has any kind of true, true insight, if you will, to the mysteries knows that it's not an individual matter, it's a divine matter. And this
Yeah,
is really what the whole program, shall we say, is about, even in
right.
these mysteries that are being revealed on subtle levels and causal kind of DMT levels or whatever chemical levels people are using today.
Sure.
They're still, the elusive is still re-emerging in the Western
Absolutely.
tradition. And so these classicalists are now having, with the Immortal Key that Brian has written and other books that are now resurfacing. So I want to go back to the adolescence because this is where we want to start with, because this is really the tradition. This is the Western tradition of knowledge and ownership and separation that I know, and I'm now caught in this ambivalence of dependence, independence. So go back to your adolescence and your reformed 12-step
Well,
program.
yes, exactly. Well, I can tell you about the end of it in ways. And there's a that great section, and I believe it's Sutra 5 of the Don Horst Testament, where he says, "You um, can't universalize my presence. Oh, it's the universal presence. There's only God, and we're all God. I'm God. The presence is only in everywhere. That kind of that is a heightened adolescent vision. It's still adolescent. It's still I. It's not even mystical. Although you might get a few pretty fireworks, as I like to call it, out of the deal, or subliming into consciousness, and it's all amazingly so that it's still adolescent. It's not it you The real spiritual process is maddening
Right.
attachment
I when
to
you say
to
adolescent, I hear it as childish, but that's fine. But could you make the just what are you referring to when you say, because adolescence is always
it's someone who knows. I know that there's consciousness. I know that
right, right.
my deepest self is the truest self. I know, and I can feel it, and it's true, and I can see that my inner deepest self is the same as the beauty everywhere. That's adolescent. It's truly adolescence. And while it may be what's tricky about it, like all righteous people, is that it's true. that that's that's it's also correct. But this knowing and
So
ownership
that's
of
the
it,
key. That's the key in adolescence is the knowledge part
the
of
I
the
part.
un, of the. Well, then there's an ownership. Knowledge doesn't
Yeah,
come without
exactly.
an owner.
That's right.
Um, so there's this sense of, oh, I know, or I've been given, or I've
Yeah. I've
received, or
sublimed myself. I've been sublimed, or I received the grace of the guru, and
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 in a
what
way you have,
and it's
right?
true. That's why it's so difficult to see. It's
Right,
true.
right.
And but one of my favorite things I learned in Adidam, from Adida, is that the guru is greater than God. And it's a joke. It's my
Well, it's
favorite
also a
Hindu joke.
heresy if you're a Christian, whatever, you
Yeah,
know.
well, yeah, well, um, but in the Hindu form of it is, in other words, this presence that's everywhere, and I can consciousness is only, and yeah, I can just all the kind of adolescent and mystical, even true consciousness inherence. There is a self that's left. That's why um, uh, Vishnu Maya Kosha is still a kosha and it's still Maya. That's why
No,
Ananda Maya Kosha is still a kosha, a sheath, and still delusionary. It's still
well,
I.
what you're referring to, the vision and the anandamaya, is the bliss and the knowledge. Those are the two Hindu qualities that go along with knowledge and understanding.
Right.
Not to dismiss them as kind of, you know,
No, no, no.
Walgreens on the shelf for two for
Definitely
99
not.
cents.
No, no, they're profound, and but the adolescent could easily claim those kind of things as well. And there is a consumer spirituality that needs to be countered. And
But not only claim it, it can also advocate it for another object that stands above and gives, they can own the owner in the sense.
absolutely, and say that I got it from the guru, and it's all
Right.
kinds of ownership that goes along with it. That's not true.
Right.
Ultimately, not true. That's why the guru is greater than God. Now, one of the traditional explanations of this joke is that there's only God and nobody notices. And then the guru comes along, ecstatic, beautiful, radiant, and everybody goes, "Oh my God, there's God. In fact, there's only God." And so, what was the difference between the fact that there was only God and then the fact that there was only God? It was the guru that made the difference. So the difference between there's only God before anybody noticed, and there was only God when people started noticing. The only difference there is the guru. So the guru is greater than God. It's a joke because it's the same thing as, and yet this difference that the guru makes can and
Well,
should be noted.
I agree because I mean I'm just going to break it down into where I am because I'm in the botany library and I'm reading, Boston and these early ethnobotanists and they're Schultes is in Mexico in 1935. He's eating peyote buttons with the Kiowa in 1935, and the way the shamans have taken this divinity, and they've in the shamanistic tradition is the mushroom is the revealer, and
Hmm.
so is the edible deity. And this is what that article that I sent you about the Western ambivalence of man
Hmm.
is that the guru becomes the edible deity.
Right.
It's the same as the mushroom or a substance outside of themselves that is actually initiating. And this is the whole Eleusis story, I believe. It's the initiation, but what you do after that is really what matters. And I
Well,
believe, go ahead.
no, no, I have both appreciation and critique for what's less than the guru. And and that is what's wonderful about psychedelia is that it breaks up patterns that we're imposing on reality itself. And reality itself, let's just be truly honest, is love bliss. And so when you break up the patterns that you add to love bliss reality, then love bliss reality is more easily shines through, more easily intuited, more easily breathed.
Right.
But
And many, yeah,
that's a that's a conductivity. That's that is uh, the secondary principle. And it's a great secondary principle. We all love conductivity, but it's good to note that what we're doing here when we use these kind of aids, performance assisted um, participation, is that we're heightening and blowing out some of the conductivity interruptions. And
well,
when you do that,
he calls it brain. It's brain mysticism. It's higher.
yes,
It's
yes.
brain mysticisms.
And what that does is allows then the primary process of the conscious process to be clarified. But
Right.
it's good to note the conscious process is senior to the conductivity process, and to focus on the conductivity side as if it's salvatory or liberating is a not full. It's not altogether true. Doesn't mean it's valueless or it's not wonderful. I've certainly done it, and I would never have no need to do that anymore. Let's put it that way. But the guru is greater than God. I'll say it again and again. The best thing one can do is maddening attachment to the presence and person and heart revealed in the company and at the feet, head on feet of the beloved. And
So
so,
let's bring how Adidam brings that to the fore, brings it up into your life and into the world. And this is what I believe what you really want to speak to.
well, it's just one of the things I want to say, of course, is that when I have a really good friend who has this saying that the further you get away from Adidam, the worse it looks. So, and which I think is very funny. But and we all know what it's like to stand apart from Adidam and get really far away from it, and and you can make a list of how bad it can look. Uh, and we are all kind of familiar with all those critiques. I also like to point out that if you want to criticize Adidam, you're in good company. I know a really important person that also was very critical. Da da da. But that's there's also a secret um, in realizing that the further you get away from it, the worse it looks, which is the reverse. The closer you get, the more wonderful it is. And what is closeness? It is, there's the beloved talks about you transcend four main areas: money, or handle your capacity to serve is a good way of saying it. Become clear and accomplished in your capacity to focus. Money, food, become balanced and ever fresher in your dietary um, participation. Sex, or relational understandings of the narcissism that we bring to our relationships, and social egoity. And those are the four things that must be transcended for there to be full participation. That's what we have to get handled before. When that is handled, then Adidam is just an occasion, many occasions, thousands of occasions to practice guru love, guru devotion. And so then there's no problems with Adidam. When those four things aren't handled, when you are not culturally and disciplined participation, there's a standoffish. I believe there's an essay in Recognition of Me as Liberation where he has an essay called Do Not Practice the Cult of False Adidam. And one of my favorite lines in there is he says, uh, the false cult of Adidam presumes a distance from me and then luxuriates in that distance. So if you want to critique Adidam, that's utterly possible and necessary. But you have to do it with no distance. That's where it's truly effective. In other words, I make the joke of I discovered the microphone whereby you can critique Adidam beautifully. It's right between his big toes. So if you put your head on his feet, in other words, presume no distance, you're in a mood of service, you're in a mood of love, surrender. And if you have something to say, you can speak right there. That microphone will pick up everything you say. So I agree there's much to critique, but if we do it in a mood of separation, then it's already false. So, and as I also like to say, as an analogy to that, every complaint is a call to service. So I want to advocate a embrace of Adidam. To me, it's kind of like your intimate, your spousal intimate. Is your spousal intimate perfect? I didn't think so. So, but you work through it. You suffer, as he says, one of my favorite lines, he says, love is what we fear to do until we fall in love. Then we're no longer afraid to be foolish, to be self-forgetful, and to suffer another. So to me, this is one of the great secrets of intimate life is to happily suffer our intimates. And in the same spirit, word chosen, in the same spirit, we suffer the there's nobody in Adidam that's fully enlightened. So we're going to have egoity. And if you have egoity, you're going to have a little cultism. That's that's given. Get over it. But suffer are just like you suffer your intimates. Suffer his body of Adidam. And then adolescence is over. Adolescence begins with the rejection of subjugation. I'm not going to do it. I'm going to do it my way. I have a private relationship with Adidam. That's blah 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 blah. The end of adolescence is not willful resistance, but willing surrender. Those are the two poles of adolescence. Begins with willful rejection of subjugation. Adolescence ends with the willful embrace of discipline and love. So uh, I I heartily embrace and call for the loving embrace of Adidam. I know it's not a very popular subject matter with many people, but I have found as a former adolescent, I find great relief in having given that up. And of course, it's not just a great relief, it's I'm baptized in egoless and formless love bliss regularly. So I could not say it more strongly.
It's good. It's good.
So on this same line of advocacy, uh, I would like to, promote and call for the free distribution of the Conscious Light film. And it's the great thing about maddening attachment to the guru, about this not the key to maddening attachment to the guru is that it's not cultic. That's that. There's the rub, right? Uh, and but the maddening non-cultic worship of his bodily appearance. Oh my God, what nectar! As he says in that essay or a talk made into an essay, Divine Distraction, now Perfect Distraction in the Aletheon, you can't argue a person into loving you. It's just, you're just distracted. You might not know why you keep coming back to this teaching, this talk, this literature, this gazing upon him. It might not make any sense to you. You may have everything against it, but we still keep coming back. We can't look away. And conscious light does that. It imbues the listeners, the watchers, the gazers with a baptism, really, of his divine presence. And then they're helped to do this and that. In Europe, people after people watch Conscious Light, they're often channeled to me for a follow up. So um, somebody,
And what
somebody
do you, where do you direct them? What do you have service? So tell me where you are. You're in Berlin. You're at
I'm
a
in Berlin.
center.
Yeah, I'm in Berlin, uh, and I'm part of the European community altogether and UK. And if somebody in this whole side of the pond is ancient, as in ancient times said, um, um, they are channeled to some of the missions. And right as of late, other people have done it in the past. Right as of late, I'm the person. There's if you like conscious light, click here and you'll for a follow up, and that will end up in a room with an online room with me or someone else. But and then we talk about exactly what we just said. There's something there that you can't look away from. It's not going to go, well, the argument is this, and do you understand that you're contracting? And then, of course, because when you contract and you make attention, and then there's all you're seeking, you can explain all that till the cows come home, or the gopis, for the gopis, you can explain that forever, but that's not the principle. The principle is that when you watch conscious light, you get a sense of him, either small intuition or a baptism of beauty.
So you're
And
speaking you're speaking about a documentary film,
mhm,
right? And
yes,
then do that is being shown or is available all the time to watch?
for free. And yeah, I think you can put up a link on B Zone so that people can
Well,
find
I
it.
have I have had it up there for years.
Well, we can promo that and just have it so that people can click on it, and you put in your email address, and then they'll say, you say what language you would like to watch it subtitled with, and you can then watch it. It's free, I think, or you can pay $5 or something like that, watch it without signing up or something. I'm not altogether sure of that, but it's free, easily free, and it's a I've seen it many times. I would watch it again anytime because it is that which is unforgettable and not wanting to forget. And I bow down to the always new one, and it is one, the very relief of God.
All right. So at this point, I will probably put on the link of this video chat we're
Hmm.
having,
Hmm.
a link to the video that you're referring to, the documentary on Adi
Hmm.
Da, and people can click onto it and watch it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
consciouslight.com or something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. So, because B Zone is a worldwide, whatever, window.
Yeah.
Um, where are you? So you actually have, so if somebody wants to walk further on into the path, if you will,
Hmm.
um, I'm sure there are centers all over the globe for for people who would like to 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 to
Take the
to
next step.
walk, take the next step.
Yeah, absolutely. And of
Okay.
course, they can always write B Zone and say, I mean, I'm not into picking any fights or defending Adidam or anything like that, but if anybody wants a friendly hand, I'm more than happy to serve.
All right. Well, one of the things that I'll offer to you is a window,
Hmm.
if you will, on the B zone
Hmm.
that you could have a regular conversation
Hmm. Well, that's
with
nice.
people because B zone does at least garner or attract or whatever thousands of people every month to
How
to
many?
study.
How many in it these days?
Well, there's tens of thousands of pages that are studied in a month. I would conservatively, if you're wiping out various automated,
30,
um,
30 seconds or less ones, yes.
yeah, I would say anywhere from 3 to 5,000 a month study and come onto the B zone.
Hmm.
Um, and now with the World Wide Web is becoming more and more powerful as an educational tool. So it's only going to, continue to, you know, increase. At least I've seen that happen.
You
More
know,
and more people.
yeah, there's one more thing I want to say about this. The guru is greater than God, and that to embrace Adi and the embrace of Adidam. It's I've had people that say that um, they do the disciplines, money, food, and sex, and really and meditate every day without with a still an adolescent reaction to submitting to cultural reflection, and it's not something that you do by yourself. That is as important. It's like saying, I do money, food, but I screw everything inside, or I do money and sex, but then I eat candy and steaks. They are four things, and the Adidam is not exclusionary. Exclusion is something I does. If you, it seems like you're being excluded, it's something that I is doing and unwilling to see. I know that's a almost a brutal confrontation and many justifications contrary to it. I let it stand as that. And because I know when I came in the front door, I dropped all that as a reformed adolescent. And I found my big justifications were ephemeral, smoke. So, and sometimes it was literally a smoke. But that goes away. And I would just encourage people to engage with the actual process of Adidam. There is no private, there's a personal, but there is no private relationship with Adida um, at depth. To really get into it, to really live in baptism, you have to be embraced by cultural agents. And that is truly helpful. It's something you can't do. So again, I just want to say, I want to put it out there. It's not popular, and I'm sure it's not popular in a more popular uh, forum like B Zone, but it's true, and I want to say it from the bottom of my heart. It's worthwhile. And have I ever been badly treated in Ali Dom by a bunch of creeps? Yeah. Uh, did as I look back on my multi decades when I was really, justified and pissed or whatever, what percent of the critiques have I maintained? About 1%. So I'll just leave it at that. Everybody's different, and there are all kinds of devotees, no doubt about it. But there is incredible baptism. There's incredible grace. There's incredible salvation and liberation that is, and grace that is pouring in the full conformity and approaching full conformity. Just saying, I want to be conformed to all of it. It's not about being perfect or even good. God knows good is not something I can do. Uh, but just going and accepting and not putting up the usual mental obstructions of private relationships is just letting that fall and realizing that Adi Dam is like an intimate and it is intimate to his body. And let that be strong. Let that be true. And come slowly or quickly.
So I want to thank you very much for your time and the conversation. I always enjoy talking with you. And I hope
Likewise.
the next time we can speak a little bit about a course that you're involved with that weaves so much more uh, of the fullness of what you're about and what you advocate. So I
Yes,
want to thank
and
you.
along the lines of your studies, both in terms of entheons and psychedelia, as well as the mysteries of Eleusis and all of the Hellenic mystery traditions.
Yeah, well, that's currently what I'm doing because I'm going to teach a course in this fall on that subject. So that's why
At
I'm
Har
present.
at Harvard.
So um, that's my current
Yeah,
study and
focus.
putting
Mhm.
together. So thank you very much. I appreciate it. And till
Thank
the next
you.
time, which I hope is sooner than later, have a good one.
Excellent.